Hi everyone, my name is Domeless and I run a Twitter account called Backstage at Blue's Clues. Blue's Clues is a show filled with many super iconic things. Blue's paw print, Steve's green striped shirt, and of course the big red thinking chair. However, I personally feel the handy dandy notebook is by far the coolest. I, like many other kids, wanted a handy dandy notebook of my own. And I got one. The Flying Colors notebook was a great toy, but it was just that, a toy. It had plastic pages, a plastic spiral, and writing on the covers. To a child with OCD, this was super frustrating, as I wanted my notebook to look just like the one seen in the show. So about 3 years ago, I started on a project to do just that. And with the help of my friends IDK and Dave, we set out to find out how to build a 100% screen-accurate handy-dandy notebook prop. After interviewing prop builders from the show, watching every episode about 100 times, including the international adaptations, and a lot of trial and error, we met our goal, and I would love to share our findings with all of you. This is how to build your own replica handy dandy notebook. A few things before we get started. Number 1, this project uses things such as saws, scissors, and other objects that can be dangerous. Please do not attempt this project without adult help, and even if you are an adult, always have someone by you who knows what they are doing. Stay safe. Number 2, I know there are toy versions of the notebooks, and I know there are the handcrafted ones you can see on eBay, Amazon, and Etsy. This isn't just about getting a notebook, this is about building one the same way they did in the show. Number 3, this is a prop, not a toy. As so, it won't last forever and will need to be fixed up every once in a while. I would not give this to kids, as it has things such as metal spirals, spray paint, and sharp edges from wood, so I definitely wouldn't recommend this for a child. It's not a toy. Number 4, I'm building this based off how the notebook looked from mid-season 3 to season 4, so it will have 9mm holes. However, if you would like to build the one from season 2 through early season 3, every time I say 9mm hole, replace it with 7.9mm hole. And number 5, I am not affiliated with Blue's Clues, Nick Jr., or Viacom. I'm just a big fan of Blue's Clues who wanted to build a replica from a show that means so much to me. And with that, let's begin. First, I'll tell you what materials you will need. You will need a sheet of 3mm thick plywood or balsa wood. Either is fine. The sheet can be any size as long as you can cut 2 or more 4" by 4" squares out of it. If you don't feel comfortable using a saw, then you can also use cardboard instead. A drill with a 9mm drill bit, a 9mm hole punch. I have both a hand punch and this super expensive industrial style one. Both are fine, but I bought the expensive one to go through large stacks of paper at once, so keep that in mind. A color printer with ink, a pack of jumbo Crayola crayons. We will use the black ones for this project, so I actually bought this pack of 8 black jumbo crayons by Stational, which is actually a company of Crayola, so they are the same size and will work just as well. Avery shipping labels that are the size of standard printer paper, yellow construction paper, clear packaging tape or some sort of self-laminating sheet, 3/16 gauge armature wire, a 1" by 36" diameter wooden dowel, sandpaper or file, scissors, wire cutters, Rust-Oleum apple red spray paint, spray primer for metals, a gloss clear coat spray, and a matte black spray paint. First thing you will want to do is to cut your wood. Now, I've heard from a few people that using a saw in a video on YouTube can get your video age restricted. I don't know if that's true, but I don't want to take any chances, so sadly I'll just have to explain to you what to do. Take your 3mm thick wood and mark a few 4" by 4" squares. We will need 2 for this project. Then, cut out the squares using a power saw of some sort. I use the chop saw, but if you're good with a bandsaw, you could use that too. Just make sure your cuts are straight. Again, I must emphasize to be extremely careful. Wear safety goggles and only cut with a saw if you're experienced. If you would rather make a cardboard notebook, as seen in season 1, you can just use a single layer sheet of cardboard and cut out 2 4" by 4" squares. Now, take your wooden covers and mark out 8 holes at the top of each. It should look like this. Now, take a drill with a 9mm bit and drill the 8 holes. Again, I can't show this part, but make sure you try to match the hole placement with the placement of the holes in the show as seen here. Reference pictures from the show a lot while doing this. If you don't get the holes perfectly straight, that's okay. There were many notebooks in the show with less than perfect holes. Again, if you use cardboard instead, a standard hole punch will do just fine. Now that you have your covers cut and holes drilled, it's time to paint them black. I forgot to get a shot of this, but basically you should just spray paint them with a matte black spray paint until both sides are covered. Now let's take a break from the covers and move on to building the spiral. Take your armature wire and uncoil it into a long straight piece about 5 feet, but I usually do about 5.5 to give myself some leeway just in case. Try and straighten out the bumps in the wire as best as you can. That way, the coils on the spiral don't end up with curved bends in them. Now using your wire cutters, cut off your piece of wire from the spool or coil. Be extra careful as the ends of the wire are sharp. Now grab your wooden dowel and start to wrap the wire around it. It's kind of hard to explain, so I'll let the video do most of the work. Depending on which version of the notebook you are trying to replicate, you will either wrap the coils to the left or to the right. Here's a pic of the spiral from Season 1 and early Season 2, and here is a pic of the spiral from mid-Season 2 to Season 4. As you can see, they go in different directions. The spiral I'm currently building is the type from mid-Season 2 to Season 4. The space in between each coil should be about 0.2656 millimeters. At least that's what my friend IDK said. I usually just eyeball it, but yeah, man, he's the expert, you know what I mean? This may take a bit of practice, and your first ones may not come out amazing, but keep at it and you will get the hang of it. Besides, the spirals in the show were never perfect either, especially the ones in the UK and Portuguese adaptations. Once you have coiled all the wire, it's time to take it off the dowel and get it ready to be trimmed. Completely trim off one of the edges so that the spiral can fit into your covers you just cut. Feed the spirals through the holes of your covers. If they don't fit through automatically, try adjusting them, but be careful not to bend them too drastically as it can lead to awkward looking spirals. Once through, choose a side to add the crayon catcher to. Crayon catcher is a name I made up for those little curled ends on the spiral. It does just what the name says. It catches the crayon. The crayon catcher also changed throughout the show's run. In Season 1, the crayon catcher made a nearly complete circle and could fit the part of the crayon with the wrapper on it snugly. In early Season 2, it basically stayed the same, however it now was trimmed to allow the cover to pass over the crayon catcher and rest in it should it need to. In Season 3, the crayon catcher was changed to its final design. This made it so it could only fit the tip of the crayon in the catcher. The one I'm making here is the post-Season 3 style. As you can see, I'm bending the spiral until I feel the crayon tip fits snugly but not too tight. Once I think it's perfect, I trim off the excess until I'm able to allow the cover to be able to pass over the crayon catcher and rest in it. Once you have done this, you can now cut off the excess bit of wire. Make sure to pay close attention to where I'm trimming and where the crayon catcher is. This should allow you to cut the spiral to the perfect length. Now I'm just testing the crayon catcher and making final adjustments. Once this is done, you can now sand down the edges that you cut so that they are smooth. I'm using sandpaper, but a file should work just as well. As you can see, I've done this plenty of times, and note your hands will be hurting after doing this. Don't be dumb like me, wear gloves. Your hands will thank you. Now it's time to spray paint the spirals. Make sure you do this in a well-ventilated area or outside, and please wear a mask. I placed mine all on a sheet of cardboard, flipping each spiral over once the coats had dried. But there are definitely better ways to go about it. This is just the only way I could do it with my resources. I first spray the spirals with a primer to help the paint stick. Then once the primer is dried, I go over it with a few coats of Rust-Oleum Apple Red spray paint. Let each coat dry thoroughly before applying the next. I forgot to get footage of this next part, but I lastly went over the spirals with a spray of gloss clear coat. Now let those dry and we will move on to the next part of the project. Now let's do the crayons. This is an easy step. Print out the crayon wrappers onto one of your shipping labels. The template I'm using allows me to make multiple wrappers. If your print is coming out too light or faded, try changing the settings of what type of paper you're printing on your computer. For example, I changed mine from plain paper to matte photo paper. It will use more ink, but the print will look so much better. Take your jumbo Crayola crayon and tear off the original wrapper. Take your new wrapper sheet and add a strip of clear packing tape or some other sort of laminate. This will give the wrapper a nice gloss look. Now cut out the wrapper and apply it to the crayon by rolling it on. Make sure the light green stripe is at the top of the crayon and the dark green stripe is at the bottom. And there you have it. You've completed your crayon. Easiest step in this by far. Now onto the paper. I don't have a paper slicer, so I cut out each 4" by 4" sheet of the paper by hand. It sucks to do this, and I'll definitely be investing in a good paper slicer in the future. Once you have a large stack of 4" by 4" sheets, it's time to add the holes. Again, I'm using an expensive hole press for this, for the same reason I say you should invest in a paper slicer. It saves a lot of time and energy. However, using a 9mm hole punch will also work, but it takes a lot more time, and your hands will hurt by the end. As you can see, I'm using a page from my Flying Colors notebook to help me line up the holes as I punch them. If you don't have that, that's fine, just make sure you line up your 8 holes like you did with the covers. Now we are on to the final step, adding the stickers to the covers. Print out your cover onto your Avery shipping labels. Cut out your stickers as carefully as possible, however you may need to trim them more. Take your sticker and place it on your wooden cover where you want it. Flip over the cover and using a sharp pencil, mark out each hole's placement on the back of the sticker. Now using a 9mm hole punch, punch out each hole. Peel off the back of the sticker and place it on the cover while lining up the holes. Do this with all of your stickers and boom, your covers are done. Once you put everything together, you have it. Your very own prop accurate handy dandy notebook. Perfect for any cosplay, fan recreation, or just as a cool item to keep on your shelf. Now, as I stated before, this isn't really a toy and won't last forever. The spiral will chip, the stickers will peel, and the whole thing, by design, wasn't supposed to last. It's built the same way the props were built, so it's built just like that. A prop, a tool to be used on the show. Nonetheless, I think it's super cool, and I couldn't be happier with the results. I would like to thank everyone who helped get the project to this point. You have made my dreams come true. And thank you to everyone for watching, subscribing, and following the Backstage at Blue's Clues Twitter account. The amount of support it has gotten is truly incredible, and I can't thank you all enough. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and if you do build your own notebook, please share it. Send it to me on Twitter, or you can make a YouTube video about it. I'd love to see all of your results. With that being said, this is Domeless from Backstage at Blue's Clues, signing off. Take care, everyone.